Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the Cotton Maxims. This is a poem possibly from the 10th century. It's an Anglo-Saxon poem, and this is what's called wisdom literature or wisdom poetry. Basically, the Cotton Maxims are... I keep wanting to say the Cotton Maxims are. It's one poem technically, but it's a whole set of ideas, a whole set of ways of thinking about the nature of the world and how different elements within the world should properly relate to one another. So I'm going to read you some bits and pieces of it because there's a few dominant themes that we see across the poem. So One element that we get periodically in the Cotton Maxims is paradoxes. Paradoxes, of course, being things that seem contradictory, but that in some ways reveal a deeper truth. And this is very common. You think of like Buddhist koans, things like this. Zeno's paradoxes in ancient Greece. This is a very common technique in wisdom literature, in philosophy, in some theology, etc., etc. So we get this 3-line, 4-line section from lines 10 through 14, or 10 through 13. Sorry. Truth is trickiest, golden treasure most costly to every man. Old folks are wisest, having known many years and endured much. Woe is wondrously clinging, but the clouds glide past. So again, this idea of paradoxes, that things are often not as they seem, this is a profound form of wisdom, right? Because the idea of simply trusting appearances is a very naive approach to the world. So being aware that things that might look good or easy or beneficial or positive may often hold hidden dangers. Like this idea, golden treasure most costly to every man. Right? This is an ironic inversion of what we would normally expect, particularly in a culture like Anglo-Saxon England, where the possession of treasure and for monarchs, the distribution of treasure was crucial, right? This was a central element of social cohesion among the aristocracy and the nobility. And yet here it's being presented as a problem. It is an ethical trap. And this actually fits quite well with medieval Christianity, right? Where wealth is not seen as a positive. It is in fact seen as a temptation that leads one astray from the proper godly path. So we've got the element of paradoxes here. Again, these things that seem contradictory, but that reveal a deeper truth through that contradiction. We got sort of straight up morality elements, just here's good stuff. This, the lines 14 and 15. Good comrades encourage a young nobleman in battle and in bestowing rings. So basically, like, pay attention to who you're hanging out with and if they're a good, positive influence on you. But also fulfill your social role. A nobleman, a young nobleman, one of his main responsibilities would be to fight. This is, right, that traditional way that people tend to explain medieval social hierarchies. You've got those that fight, those that pray, those that work. A young nobleman would be among those that fight. His job is to be a warrior, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon period, where, particularly 10th century, where you have had Viking raids, you've had the Danelaw. England is sort of emerging in this whole series of wars and invasions and conflicts with both within Anglo-Saxon kingdoms themselves, but also from Scandinavia, but also from Wales, Cornwall, Scotland, Ireland, the Celtic, what's now kind of known as the Celtic fringe. The Celts at that time were a much more powerful adversary compared to the Anglo-Saxons. So you have all of these elements. A young nobleman needs to learn properly how to do things like fighting, but also, again, bestowing rings. This was a traditional component of Anglo-Saxon warrior culture. When your retainers, when your nobles, when your lords fought well for you, you gave them treasures, particularly rings. Again, we see this in something like Beowulf. It's very, very important for social cohesion and maintaining loyalty. So we have, again, these elements of morality about sort of learning your role within the world. And then sort of the overall dominant theme of much of the poem is basically that everything has a proper role in the world. Everything has a place, and everything has duty within that place, right? So this is sort of like the opening part of Fiddler on the Roof, where Tevye says something to the effect of, because of our traditions, everyone knows who he is and what God expects him to do. We have the same kind of element here in the Cotton Maxims, this idea that there is a proper place and behavior for everything that exists. So I'm going to read you a portion of this. This is a long, long section, and I'm just going to read a bit of it. Going from line 16 up through about 23. But this actual sort of stanza itself goes on to about line 41. In the nobleman courage, the blade endures combat against the helmet. The hawk belongs on the glove, though wild. The wolf belongs in his den, a wretched loner. In the woods the boar, strong with great tusks. A good man belongs at home, striving for fame. The spear belongs in the hand, adorned with gold, and gems in a ring, standing broad and high. So again, this idea that everything in the world has a purpose, has a place, has a utility, has a function, and that everything should be fulfilling its role in the world, right? So actually, I didn't mention this, but I'm reading the Cotton Maxims out of the Broadview Anthology of Medieval Literature, and in the introduction to the Cotton Maxims, they have this line: in Old English literature, proverbial statements were often recognized by their use of the word shall, or must, which in this context implies a general tendency. So that word shall would probably have been in some of these lines that I've just read you. Maybe something like, the blade shall endure combat against the helmet. The hawk shall on the glove. The wild, the wolf shall in his den, a wretched loner. That's probably not grammatically correct if you translated the whole thing into Old English, but I'm jamming together modern English with one Old English word to give you a sense of how this might work. So this idea of shall, or shall, in modern English would be the closest equivalent. It suggests this is how things are supposed to be. Things should be this way. And that's very, very central to the idea of wisdom literature, right? Here's how the world can be understood. And that's sort of central to wisdom literature, central to the Cotton Maxims, is this idea that the world is comprehensible and the world is organizable.